I'm Madeline Rowe. I'm 24 years old, from Dayton, Ohio. And tonight I walked out of my father's house at 2:07 a.m. with nothing but a duffel bag stuffed with nothing but receipts, a recorder, and one old photograph of my dad holding me as a baby and a secret plan that I will come back with. My dad's voice wouldn't leave me. "You'll never regret this," he said. I believed him. I gave up everything, even my $50,000 trust fund. People think betrayal comes slowly, like cracks in glass. For me, it came all at once. A smile from my stepmother that didn't reach her eyes, a slip of paper I wasn't supposed to see, and the crushing truth that the man I gave everything for had left me with nothing. But at the funeral, something caught my eye. My stepmom leaned too close to the lawyer, whispering, smiling, like the game was already hers. That smile haunted me. It didn't feel right. And by the time the will was read, I already knew something was wrong. You don't know the betrayal yet, but trust me, you will. And when you hear what they did, you're going to hate them as much as I did. Comment with what your plan would be if you were in my situation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you believe underdogs deserve their revenge. And stay with me as I get my last pound of flesh. The conference room was too bright for a day like this. The blinds were pulled halfway, letting in these thin, sharp slats of light that cut across the polished wood table. Everything smelled faintly like dust and old paper. I sat there with my duffel bag at my feet, knees pressed together, my hands trembling in my lap. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. I told myself that my father, for all his flaws, wouldn't forget me. Not after everything I did for him. Not after I sold my car, cleared out my apartment, drained my trust fund, and handed over every last dollar to keep him alive just a little longer. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat, like the world had all the time it needed. My siblings leaned back in their chairs, relaxed, as if this was a show they had already seen. My stepmom, Lorraine, sat with her hands folded in front of her, her face pinched into that same tight smile she wore at the funeral, a smile that never reached her eyes. "And to my children," the lawyer began. I sat up straight. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the hum of the overhead light. He read each name, one by one. My brother, Philip. My sister, Naomi. I waited. I told myself it had to be alphabetical, or maybe chronological, or maybe he was saving mine for last, as some kind of dramatic flourish. But then his voice slowed, turned softer. These, being my final wishes, are to be executed as written. Silence. The words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. I looked at the page, then at him, then back at the page. My name wasn't there. Not once. Not in the opening, not in the closing, not in the fine print. I felt my stomach drop, heavy and cold, like I was falling straight through the floor. And that's when I heard it, a low chuckle. Philip, smirking at the corner of the table, biting the inside of his cheek like he couldn't hold the laughter in. Naomi followed, a sharp exhale through her nose, a smile tugging at the edge of her mouth. I gripped the underside of the chair to keep my hands from shaking. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. Lorraine's hand sliding across, slow and deliberate, until it landed on Philip's. She squeezed, not tenderly, not like comfort, but like a signal, like a silent celebration. They didn't even wait until I left the room. My chest burned. I swallowed, but my throat felt raw. My father had looked me in the eye in that hospital bed. His skin was pale, his grip weak, but his voice was steady. "You'll never regret this, Madeline." Not for a second. Those were the words I carried with me when I signed away my trust fund, when I pawned the necklace my grandmother left me, when I packed up my apartment and moved into a tiny sublet near the hospital so I could be close. And yet here I was, cut out, erased. The lawyer shuffled the papers and stacked them neatly. His voice was clinical, detached. "This concludes the reading of the will." I forced myself to breathe, to not let them see me crumble. But then my eyes landed on the page again. The signature, My father's signature was familiar. He had this way of dragging out the D in Donovan, looping it wide before snapping it shut. I had seen him sign countless hospital forms, checks, even notes he left me on the fridge. But this one, the curve was sharp, the ink pressure uneven. The last name slanted downward in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't right. I blinked, leaning in, my pulse quickening. It was his name, but not his hand. Or at least, not the hand I knew. I didn't say anything. Not yet. If I opened my mouth now, my voice would betray me. The others stood, murmuring thanks to the lawyer as if they were leaving a dinner party. Philip slid his phone into his pocket, his smile plastered smug across his face. Naomi brushed past me without a glance. Lorraine paused at the door, her perfume sharp and floral, and whispered, "You should learn to let go, sweetheart. It'll be easier." I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat there alone as the room emptied, staring at that signature burned into my brain. Outside, the air was colder than I expected. The sky was overcast, heavy, pressing down on me. I pulled out my phone just to feel anchored. The screen lit up with a notification. A text from Philip. "Guess you're out of the family for good." 3 laughing emojis followed. My stomach twisted. Another text arrived, this time from Naomi. "Hope you kept the receipt for all that charity work." I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood. I scrolled further. Screenshots. They had made a group chat without me. Messages mocking me, calling me naive, stupid, the pathetic little martyr. They sent pictures from a dinner after the funeral, glasses raised, toasting like it was a celebration. One caption read, "Dad would have wanted it this way." My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. I closed my eyes, and for a split second, I wished I could undo everything. I wished I hadn't sold my car. I wished I hadn't drained my trust fund. I wished I hadn't believed in his promise. But then another thought cut through the fog. The signature. That wasn't my dad's hand. I knew it. I felt it. And if they thought they could erase me, if they thought I would just disappear quietly, they were wrong. The texts kept coming. "Hope you enjoy your new life. Broke girl. Don't show up at the house. The locks are changed. You'll always be the outsider." Each one tightened the noose. Each one made my skin crawl. I stayed at the screen until the words blurred. My hand trembled, but I didn't respond. Instead, I slipped the phone back into my pocket, clenched my fists, and walked. I didn't know where yet. I didn't know how. But I knew this. They had taken my money, my home, my place in the family. What I didn't realize then was that they had already stolen something far worse than money. And soon, I would find out exactly what it was. It was 2:07 a.m. when I finally slipped out. I'd been awake for hours, lying in bed with my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow and lazy above me, like I had no idea my whole world had collapsed. My dad's last words kept replaying in my head. "You'll never regret this," like some riddle I hadn't solved yet. I sat up, swung my legs off the bed, and felt the cold would flow against my feet. My duffel bag was already waiting. I'd packed it earlier that evening, every zipper sealed, every pocket filled with just enough of my life to keep me moving forward. I crouched beside it and checked the contents again, because even though I knew what was inside, I couldn't help myself. Laptop, old receipts, a recorder I hadn't used since college, a small stack of documents I wasn't even sure mattered anymore, and at the very top, tucked in between a sweater and a half-empty notebook, was the photograph. The photo of my dad holding me when I was a baby, his arms around me, his grin so wide it crinkled the corners of his eyes. He looked proud, alive, like the kind of man who could never be taken down by anything, not even death. I traced the edge of the picture with my thumb, then slid it carefully into the inside pocket. I zipped the bag shut. That sound, the zipper dragging across the fabric, felt louder than it should have in the silence of the house. The silence was heavy, too heavy. I froze for a second, listening. Upstairs, nothing. No footsteps, No creaks, no voices. The only sound was the old clock ticking in the hallway. I lifted the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and made my way to the door. Every step down the staircase groaned under my weight, like the house itself was trying to hold me back. My hand shook as I twisted the doorknob, and when the hinges let out the softest squeal, I stopped breathing altogether. But the silence held. No one stirred. The door clicked shut behind me, and the cold night air hit my face. It was dark, the kind of darkness where the streetlights barely reached the corners of the block. My breath fogged in front of me as I started walking, each step carrying me farther away from the house that didn't feel like mine anymore. Halfway to the car, I pulled out my phone to check the time. That's when the notification flashed across the screen. My heart dropped. Bank alert, account withdrawal. Balance, $0.00. I stopped dead in the middle of the sidewalk, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. That account was under my dad's name, the one he never mentioned to anyone but me. The timestamp showed the withdrawal had been made just hours after he died. Someone had drained it. The world tilted. My stomach clenched like I'd been punched. My first thought was maybe it was a mistake, a glitch, a typo. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't an accident. They hadn't just cut me out of the will. They'd emptied the account too, before the doubt had even settled on his grave. My breath came in sharp gasps. I felt heat crawl up my neck despite the cold air. Rage buzzed in my veins, thick and hot. I wanted to scream, to run back to that house, to tear into every one of them. But I didn't. Instead, I kept walking. When I reached the car, my phone buzzed again. I looked down, expecting another alert, maybe another blow. But it was different this time. A voicemail. I stayed at the screen. The number was one I knew too well. My dad's number. My thumb trembled as I pressed play. Madeline. His voice cracked, but it was him. Alive in the recording, alive in my ear. My eyes burned instantly. You'll always be my favorite. Don't let them take what's yours. The message ended. Silence. I sat down hard on the driver's seat, the leather cold beneath me. I clutched the phone like it was the only thing keeping me together. Tears threatened, but I forced them back. I couldn't cry now. Not when his voice had just handed me the one thing I needed most. A reason to fight. I started the car, the engine rumbling in the still night. The headlights lit up the street, pale and unforgiving. For a moment I just sat there, gripping the wheel, staring into the emptiness. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd accept scraps. They thought they'd won. But they were wrong. I opened the family group chat, my fingers hovering over the screen. I could see their names lined up, the same people who had smirked at me in that lawyer's office, the same ones who had whispered, mocked, and smiled as if my father had never even loved me. I started typing. The words came out simple, almost casual. Dinner. Olive Garden. Tonight, 7 p.m. I hit send. The message glowed back at me. 6 words that felt like the opening shot of a war. They thought they knew me, but they hadn't seen anything yet. I got to Olive Garden earlier than I needed to. That was deliberate. I wanted to see them walk in, to watch their smug little procession like royalty stepping onto a red carpet. I sat in my car for 10 long minutes, the dashboard clock glowing 6:48, 6:49, 6:50. Every tick made me feel like I was strapped into a roller coaster inching toward the drop. The bag sat on the passenger seat beside me, zipped but not locked. Inside were the things that mattered: my phone, already on silent and ready to record, a tiny audio recorder I'd bought from Walmart just in case, and a photo of my dad holding me when I was a baby. That photo wasn't part of the plan. It was just something I needed. His eyes in that picture reminded me why I couldn't back down now. By 6:55, I climbed out of the car. My sneakers crunched against the asphalt. The late September air was cool, the kind that sinks into your bones. I hugged my jacket tighter around me and forced myself to walk inside. The moment I pushed through the glass doors, I was hit by that familiar Olive Garden smell: garlic bread, tomato sauce, cheap wine. Families were laughing. forks scraping plates, waiters balancing trays. But in that noise, I spotted them instantly. My stepmom, Lorraine, with her perfect hair and that smug half-smile. Next to her, my stepbrother Chase, cocky as ever, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. Across from him sat my sister Emily, scrolling through her phone, the glow of the screen lighting up her face like she couldn't care less. They hadn't seen me yet. They were laughing. Actually laughing. I walked up, steady but silent, and Lorraine finally looked up. Her eyes widened just enough to let me know she was surprised I'd come, but her voice was smooth as silk. "Oh, look who decided to show up." Chase smirked. "Didn't think you'd actually do it. Thought you'd be at home, crying or something." Emily finally looked up from her phone. "She looks tired. Poor thing." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I slid into the booth across from them. My bag was beside me, the zipper slightly open so I could reach inside if I needed to. My phone was angled against a napkin holder, ready. The waiter came by, notepad in hand. Lorraine waved him off like he was beneath her. 3 wines. She'll just have water. She didn't even look at me when she said it. I clenched my jaw but stayed quiet. This wasn't the moment to fight over wine. Once the waiter left, Lorraine leaned forward, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "You know, Madeline, you really should have listened when I told you not to waste everything on your father. He wasn't thinking straight, but we made sure he understood before the end." Her words sliced into me, but I didn't flinch. Inside, my stomach twisted, but I pressed my thumb against the phone screen under the table. "Recording." Emily finally chimed in, her tone sharp. "It wasn't that hard. He was weak. Lorraine talked to him. Chase backed it up. We just had to convince him you weren't ready, that you'd waste it all. And boom." She snapped her fingers. "Gone." Chase chuckled. "The best part? He signed everything over right before the end." "Right, Mom." Lorraine gave him a quick squeeze under the table, a breadcrumb, a signal I almost missed. She wasn't just proud. She was confirming it happened. And my phone caught every word. I let them talk, let them dig their hole deeper. Emily bragged about how they'd already spent part of the money on a new car. Chase boasted about a Vegas trip he was planning. Lorraine smirked the whole time, sipping her wine like she'd just won a war. They didn't notice how still I was, how my eyes flicked between their mouths and my phone. And then, just like that, everything shifted. A shadow fell across the table. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. It was Mr. Preston, the lawyer who'd read the will. His eyes went straight to me, then to the phone, then to the bag. Lorraine's smile spread wider. "Mr. Preston," she said smoothly. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing some family matters." He didn't return her smile. He leaned down, close to me, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "You need to delete that recording. Now." The world tilted. "What?" My voice cracked before I could steady it. Lorraine's voice cut through the restaurant noise. "Madeline, you heard him. You can't just record people without consent. That's illegal. Manager." She raised her hand, and seconds later, a man in a black vest appeared. His name tag said Eddie. He looked exhausted, like he wanted no part of this. But when Lorraine leaned in to whisper something, his expression hardened. He said finally, looking at me. "I need you to delete the recording." Heads were turning. The tables around us had gone quiet. I could feel strangers watching me, waiting for me to break. My hands shook as I pulled the phone out of the bag. The delete button glared at me. For a second, I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that I had proof. But Lorraine's eyes were locked on me, smug and merciless. Preston's glare was like a wall pressing down on me. Eddie hovered close, arms folded, ready to throw me out if I resisted. I pressed delete. The screen flashed, recording erased. Lorraine exhaled like she'd just won the lottery. There, now wasn't that easy? I dropped the phone into the bag, My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my skin. My chest felt hollow, like everything I'd worked for had been ripped away again. They thought they'd beaten me, but they didn't know the truth. From the moment I pressed record, a duplicate file had started uploading to my cloud storage. Quiet, invisible, untouchable. I forced my face into a mask of defeat, let my shoulders slump, let my eyes shine with fake tears. If they thought I'd given up, it would make my next move easier. When the table settled, when their laughter started up again, I slipped the phone back out under the table. My thumb swiped to open the app, and there it was, the little spinning icon of the upload. I held my breath, waiting for the sweet confirmation. 1 second, 2, 3, then the screen flashed. Error. Upload failed. My heart stopped. I refreshed the app. Same message. Error. I tried again and again. Nothing. It wasn't just paused. It was gone. The file hadn't uploaded. My one shred of proof was gone. I stayed at the phone, my vision blurring. Lorraine was still talking, laughing, sipping her wine, completely unaware of what was happening under the table. Chase was bragging about some scheme. Emily rolled her eyes at him. And me? My safety net had just vanished. If they destroyed this, I had only one move left. I woke up that morning feeling the weight of the world pressing down on my chest. The room was dark, the blinds only half closed, and for a moment I thought maybe if I stayed perfectly still, if I didn't move or breathe too loudly, the nightmare would pass. But it didn't. I reached over to my phone, my hands shaking, and the first thing I saw made my stomach drop. Notifications, hundreds, maybe thousands, each one a tiny dagger aimed straight at me. The screen glowed with comments I didn't even know existed. What a waste. She never deserved anything. Who even gives away $50,000 like that? The familiar buzz of social media had become a swarm of angry bees, each one stinging me in a different place. My pride, my heart, my memory of my father. It wasn't just random strangers. Some of them were mutual friends, people I thought had my back, people who had watched me sacrifice everything for my dad. And now they were telling me I was naive, foolish, irresponsible. I scrolled down, but the endless stream only grew darker, more personal. Someone had dug up old pictures of me, moments from years ago, and captioned them with lies. They showed me at college parties, smiling in photos taken out of context, with messages implying I had always been selfish, reckless, undeserving. The sheer audacity of it made my hands tremble. How dare they? How dare they take my grief, my sacrifice, and twist it into some kind of punchline for their petty satisfaction? And then the first concrete blow landed. My landlord's number flashed across my screen. Urgent. Clipped. Madeline, this is the 5th time we've tried to reach you. Rent is overdue. Please come by the office. I froze. I had been scraping by, trying to stretch what little I had left, but I hadn't expected this. I opened the message attached. Scan notice. Official looking. Stamped in red letters. Eviction notice. The apartment, the one place I had called my own for years, was about to be taken from me. Just like that. I sank into my chair, my head in my hands, and let the tears come. They were raw, bitter tears that burned my throat, and for a moment the world felt impossibly heavy. I had nothing, no trust fund, no home, no social support. Everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed for my dad, seemed like it had been for nothing. Then my phone vibrated again. This time it was a private message from Emily, my sister. My heart stopped for a moment as I opened it, hoping against hope that maybe she was apologetic, maybe she was reaching out. But the words cut deeper than any public comment ever could. We can make this easier for you. Walk away. Take $25,000 and disappear. No one has to know. We just want this done. I stayed at the screen. My finger hovered over the reply button, and for a heartbeat, I considered it. Maybe it would be easier to just take the money, to escape, to vanish into obscurity while they got everything else. Maybe that's what a normal person would do. Maybe that's what someone who didn't love their father the way I did would do. But then I thought of his face, his eyes shining with trust, the last words he had spoken to me, "You'll never regret this." And I knew I couldn't. I typed back nothing. I just stayed at the screen until the message disappeared from my mind and left a hollow, empty space behind it. No, I wasn't walking away. Not now. Not ever. The days that followed were worse than anything I could have imagined. The smear campaign hit hard. Lorraine, my stepmom, had apparently contacted every mutual friend, every family connection, every minor acquaintance we had. Photos of me wasting money on charity, on hospital visits, on things she framed as indulgences, were now circulating everywhere. I saw captions like, "Look at her squandering everything Dad left behind. Who does she think she is?" And typical Madeline wasting her inheritance before she even gets it. Every scroll brought a new stab. Every like, every share, every comment made me want to disappear. My phone never stopped buzzing. My inbox was flooded with angry messages, whispers of judgment, and threats disguised as advice. People I had trusted were now writing me off as a failure, as though the sacrifices I had made, the choices I had made out of love, were crimes worthy of punishment. And worse, every single notification felt orchestrated, timed, deliberate. It wasn't random. It was war. And they were winning. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them. Lorraine laughing at my expense. Chase smirking like he had just played the perfect game. Emily scrolling her phone without a shred of remorse. And in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about that one moment, the Olive Garden dinner, the recording, the cloud backup that had failed. I had trusted that system to protect me, and now it was gone. The one thing that could have guaranteed my proof, my leverage, was gone. I paced the apartment, running my hands through my hair, feeling the walls close in around me. The eviction notice was taped to the fridge, glaring, a constant reminder that I was running out of time, running out of options, running out of everything. My bank account was almost empty, and I had no way of fighting this legally without the evidence. Every plan I had meticulously laid out seemed to be crumbling in real time. The crushing weight of despair pressed down on me like a vice. And then, just when I thought the bottom had been reached, a faint glimmer of hope emerged, a memory I hadn't thought about in years. During college, before my dad had fallen ill, I had emailed him some financial documents, statements, and old tax paperwork to my professor, Dr. Harlan, a man who had taught me finance and accounting. I remembered his words at the time. "Keep these safe, Madeline. One day, they might matter." I hadn't thought of him in years, but now, desperation clawed at my chest, and I grabbed my laptop. I logged into the old email account I barely used anymore. The password was buried in an old notebook under my bed. My fingers shook as I typed it in, and there it was, the folder, untouched, with every single document I had sent him. I called him immediately, my voice quivering. "Dr. Harlan, I need your help. I think someone's taken everything my father left me. They've been manipulating things. I don't know what to do." There was a pause on the line. Then his calm, measured voice cut through my panic. "Madeline, I've kept everything safe. I knew you'd need it one day. Let me look through it. Send me the details of what's happening." Over the next few hours, he dug through the documents with the precision of a surgeon. Every bank statement, every transfer, every note was examined. And then, like a beacon in the darkness, he found it, anomalies, irregular patterns, transfers that didn't make sense, signatures that didn't match. It was subtle but undeniable. Fraud, cleverly disguised as normal financial behavior. "Madeline," he said finally, voice faint but gentle, "you've been wronged. This isn't just about money. Someone has deliberately manipulated your father's estate. But we can prove it." A spark of hope ignited within me, burning away some of the despair. But I didn't celebrate yet. I knew that hope was fragile, like a candle flickering in a storm. There were too many variables, Too many ways for this to fall apart again. Then, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from the journalist friend I had contacted weeks ago, the one I had entrusted with the Olive Garden recording. My heart sank. For days, she hadn't responded, and I had feared the worst, that she had abandoned me, that my last chance at justice had slipped through my fingers. The message was brief but electrifying. Madeline, I've verified everything with regulators. The exposé is ready. Stand by. I could barely breathe. All the threads I had feared were lost. The cloud backup, the recordings, the social media war was suddenly connected. Evidence was now in expert hands, verified, ready to go public. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like the tide was turning. The night dragged on as I coordinated with Dr. Harlan and the journalist. We double-checked every document, every signature, every transfer. I couldn't sleep. Every detail mattered. Every misstep could mean failure, and failure wasn't an option. By morning, the first hints of dawn filtered through the blinds. I stepped outside to breathe, the cool air hitting my face like a wake-up call. My phone buzzed again. Notifications. But this time, it wasn't anger. Not directly. It was a trickle at first, shares of an article, posts hinting at revelations, murmurs of scandal. And then, as the sun rose, the flood began. By breakfast time, I couldn't even scroll fast enough. Their faces, their names, their smug grins from every photo they had ever posted. They were everywhere. Lorraine's carefully curated image of perfection shattered. Chase's boasting had been recorded and verified. Emily's coldness and callousness were exposed. Every post, every share, every comment made it painfully clear. The world had seen them not as winners, but as manipulators. Not as heirs, but as cheats. Not as family, but as villains. And the best part, it was all documented, all verified, all undeniable. I stood there, phone in hand, watching the chaos unfold, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to smile. Not a triumphant smile, not a gloating smile, but a calm, quiet smile. Justice wasn't perfect, and it couldn't bring my father back. But it had given me something far greater, my dignity, my proof, my power back. And even now, as the posts and shares continued to ripple across the internet, I knew this was only the beginning. I had survived the lowest point, and I had turned it into the apex of the story. By morning, their faces were everywhere, and not for the reason they wanted. I woke up before dawn, the sky still a bruised shade of purple, the quiet of the street outside broken only by the occasional hum of a passing car. My apartment was eerily silent, but my phone vibrated insistently on the counter. I grabbed it, hands trembling, and froze. There it was, a secure link from my journalist friend, the one who had waited so patiently, so deliberately, to release everything. I could feel my pulse in my throat, every beat echoing like a drum. I didn't know if I was ready to see it, ready to confront the culmination of months of planning, sacrifice, and near destruction, but I knew I had no choice. Clicking the link, I saw it all laid out in meticulous, undeniable detail, the Olive Garden recording, every sly, arrogant comment from my siblings caught on tape, the bank records, showing transfers made hours after my father's death, cleverly masked but traceable, and Dr. Harlan's annotations, highlighting patterns, inconsistencies, and fraudulent behavior that no casual observer would notice. Every line was a nail in their carefully built veneer of innocence. My stomach churned as I scrolled, a mixture of adrenaline, fear, and vindication twisting inside me. I remembered the way Lorraine had smirked at me during the dinner, whispering under her breath like she had it all figured out. Chase leaning back in his chair, smug as ever, thinking he had cornered me. Emily, eyes flitting between the two, silently enjoying the show. And now, the universe was flipping the script. Their overconfidence, their arrogance, had been my weapon. Their dinner had been carefully orchestrated to make them believe they were untouchable, that I was powerless. Every laugh, every boast, every dismissive comment was now captured, catalogued, and primed for exposure. I couldn't help the small, triumphant smile that tugged at my lips. My phone buzzed again. This time, the notification was from a verified news outlet. Breaking, investigative report reveals family fraud and manipulation in high-profile estate case. I froze, staring at the headline, heart hammering. The article was live. The journalist had timed it perfectly, releasing the evidence package at the same moment regulators were ready to act. The first comments were pouring in: anger, shock, disbelief. People were connecting the dots faster than I could even process. Within hours, the story had gone viral. Lorraine's meticulously curated social media life, her supposed perfect family image, was in shreds. Chase's boastful posts, Emily's cold, calculated smiles, all of it dissected, analyzed, and displayed to the public. And the best part? It wasn't conjecture. It was facts, verified, backed up by documents, recordings, and expert testimony. The calls started coming in next: lawyers, investigators, even old family friends who had been kept in the dark. The bank froze all suspicious transfers, preventing the funds from being moved further. Emails poured in from regulators, requesting statements, corroborating the findings. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe, truly breathe. The tide had turned, and it was overwhelming. I watched as the first wave of fallout hit my family. Lorraine's phone never stopped buzzing, Chase's smug grin faltering as he read email after email, Emily's calculated calm slipping into panic. I had prepared for legal battles, for confrontations, for smear campaigns, but I hadn't anticipated the satisfaction of watching their world unravel in real time. Every post, every news article, every comment exposing them felt like a small victory, a tribute to the months I had endured. And then, the twist that made it all feel even sweeter, the Olive Garden failure. I had planned that meticulously disastrous dinner to make them overconfident, to let them brag publicly, to show their true colors. That night, it had felt like a disaster. Our plan had appeared to crumble, the recording confiscated, the cloud backup failing, but it had all been intentional. They had shown themselves, laid bare their arrogance, and every misstep, every boast, had been captured and documented. My so-called failure had been the bait that guaranteed their undoing. Hours later, I was in the mediation room, documents laid out, evidence presented. The air was thick with tension, every movement deliberate, every glance weighted with history. My siblings sat across from me, their faces pale, their confidence stripped bare. Lorraine's lips pressed into a tight line, Chase shifting uncomfortably in his seat, Emily trying to maintain composure but failing in subtle, telltale ways. The mediator was calm, professional, methodical. He went through the evidence, highlighting the fraudulent transfers, the inconsistencies, the verified recordings. Every point, every piece of proof, made their world crumble further. I watched them, quiet, controlled, letting the evidence speak louder than any words I could. The humiliation was visible in their eyes, a slow dawning of realization. They had underestimated me, thought me powerless, and now they were learning the consequences. The assets were redistributed fairly. My father's home, the accounts, the residual funds, all allocated in accordance with what was just, what was fair. My siblings had no choice but to comply. Their arrogance had been their downfall, and I didn't have to lift a finger. After the mediation, I stepped outside, the cool dawn air wrapping around me like a blanket. The sky was a pale pink, the first light reflecting off the dewy grass. I held my father's photo close, tracing the lines of his smiling face, feeling the weight of his love, his trust, and the sacrifices we had both made. My heart was heavy, yes, but it was also full. Justice had been served, not as revenge, but as truth. And in that truth, I found peace. But there was one final twist. The lawyer who had orchestrated so much of the manipulation, who had quietly facilitated Lorraine's schemes and taken advantage of their power, had been exposed as well. My journalist friend had uncovered his unethical ties, corroborated them with documentation, and ensured they were made public. Within days, he was disbarred, his reputation destroyed, his career in ruins. The ripple effect of justice had reached further than I could have imagined, touching not only my immediate adversaries but those who had enabled them. Standing there, in the soft light of dawn, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't thought possible. Not just legal closure, not just financial victory, but a deeper, personal triumph. I hadn't just survived. They had tried to erase me, but I had reclaimed my name, my dignity, and my father's honor. They thought they erased me. I erased their lies. I whispered to myself, the words tasting like fire and ice on my tongue. I turned, glancing back at the house one last time. My reflection in the window caught my eye, tired, worn, but unbroken. The world had seen my weakness, my sacrifice, my suffering. And now, it had also seen my strength, my cunning, my resilience. Every moment of despair, every sleepless night, every trembling heartbeat had led me to this point. The story didn't end here. The journalist had promised a follow-up, detailing the precise steps, the strategic moves, the moments that had seemed like failures but were actually masterstrokes. The world would watch again, and the underdog would rise once more. I held my father's photo a little tighter, inhaled the crisp morning air, and felt the final pieces of the puzzle fall into place. It wasn't just about winning. It was about justice, about truth, about reclaiming what was mine. The world had been forced to see the lies for what they were, and in that revelation, I had found a power deeper than money, deeper than titles, deeper than inheritance. And then, just as the sun broke fully over the horizon, I smiled. A quiet, satisfied smile, one that didn't need to be seen to be powerful. The battle was over, the plan complete, the victory absolute. I had endured the lowest lows and emerged not just intact, but triumphant. The comments on the news articles, the social media posts, the reactions from friends and strangers alike, they were pouring in. People were debating, analyzing, arguing about whether I had gone too far or not far enough. And that, I realized, was exactly what I had wanted. Discussion, engagement, reflection, people understanding that justice could be cunning, deliberate, and devastating when wielded correctly. If you were in my shoes, would you have walked away with the hush money? Would you have let them manipulate, smear, and steal from you? Or would you have fought, tooth and nail, like I did? Comment below. Like if you would have done the same. Subscribe, because the next story, the next underdog who refuses to be erased, is already waiting. I tucked my father's photo into my coat pocket and walked away from the house, the morning sun at my back, each step steady, each breath deliberate. I didn't need applause. I didn't need recognition. I had the truth. I had my father's love, his faith in me, and the satisfaction of watching lies crumble into dust. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that the world had learned a lesson. Not about revenge, not about spite, but about resilience. About what happens when someone who has been underestimated, dismissed, and betrayed refuses to be broken. They thought they erased me. I erased their lies.